Of creating my front cover on Photoshop, I learned quite a few things about page design. The biggest probably being that you can't just wing it, you have to have some form of plan or design to base your final product off. I know that my finished product is a lot different from my designs, but there are still the main points such as the masthead and the cover image that have stayed the same throughout. So for that reason I would say get your plans for your main components set in stone and plan everything around those. Another important thing is to make sure your front cover isn't too busy, so that everything is on the cover is easy to read, yet still not look too plain or boring and to not have a lot of dead space. When I was doing my magazine, I spent a lot of time rearranging things and seeing what I could place where in order to get the best looking product. The best way I've found to have a simple yet interesting and eye-catching cover is have a variety of fonts and colours throughout the page, providing that they are suitable for the genre and that the colours work well together. This was found out that when I had all of my cover lines on my front cover with the background boxes on my page, it still looked quite boring, but as soon as I started to change the fonts and the sizes, the page began to come to life. And the rectangular shaped images on the cover, by having a variety of shaped images and sizes, like I cut some circles out of them and sometimes I did the shapes around them. It also, for one, it showed the array of tools that I can use and that are available, but two, it just made everything look a lot more professional. Photoshop is my favourite program for editing images simply because of all of the different tools, layers and adjustments you can add to your image. The program proved to be the best way to create my front cover because in my opinion it is the easiest to navigate through all of your items and layers on the page. I like how easy it is to merge, link and group all your layers together, as well as the fact that each new adjustment or item that you add onto your page is automatically a new layer and you can merge it to another one if you choose, unlike other programs that make it near impossible to control your layers and know what is what. When making my magazine, I chose to make folders of my layers, as you can see here, for each section, and there are a lot more layers than you would expect on some parts of the magazine. For example, my crossface section has 7 layers in it, whereas it just looks like an image and text. When your layers are in groups, it also means that you can move that whole section together to keep them all in line, and also makes it easier to rearrange the layers in order of visibility when they are in groups. The layers also allows you to make a layer mask where the adjustment you make only applies to the previous layer, which comes in very handy when you add all the layers in an order and realise that the one at the back needs adjusting. You can then do it easily without having to reorganise everything and change the settings. It's pretty quick and easy. For example, if my background, which is as you can see at the very bottom, I can then I'd do a layer, new adjustment layer, maybe let's try exposure, and then you would use previous layer to clipping mask. Then by doing that, you are then making this adjustment only apply to your bottom thing. For example, if I use exposure, you can see that it drastically affects the background, but does not affect your front images, which is the ideal part of this. But then obviously I'll delete that layer, but that shows what it means. Some other tools worth noting are the selection tools, specifically the quick selection tool here and the elliptical marquee tool, which is here next to the rectangle one, both of which were quite a large part of the creation of my magazine, with the quick selection tool being the easiest and quickest way to delete large portions of images. For example, the whole background of this main image was white and I didn't want it white, so I just selected around their bodies quite easily and then deleted it. But it also helped in a myriad of ways, from deleting the background, deleting tiny imperfections and isolating one person out of a crowd. For example, if I wanted to completely delete this guy here, I could just select him and then I could click, for example, I'll do it, if I select just Josh and then clicked new layer via copy, it would then only For example, if I hid everything else, it would then only have what I selected on this layer, for example here. Obviously, because I was selected on the background copy, it's only selected the background. But by doing that, you can then remove this piece, do whatever you want with that specific image or piece of image. And I'll just make all of these visible again. But then you can also, by doing that, you also keep the original image intact, which means if you want to copy that image somewhere else or use it as proof or put it on another page, you still have the original image, but you've still managed to create the layer with just the piece of information that you want on a different page. The elliptical marquee tool was also very useful, as it enabled me to make an image a perfect circle or delete a perfect circle from something, which you can see quite a few examples of on my front cover, where I've put a band member's face here in a circle shaped image, which makes them look a lot more tidy and actually quite a lot more unique than if I used images that were squares or cutouts of an image. I have used a cutout of an image here, but that's because I think it looks a lot better. Whereas if I used cutouts on every single one, it would look quite untidy and, in my opinion, very childish. Another tool that was very useful in the creation of my front cover was the clone stamp. And I'll just hide these so then I can hone in on what I want to do. Is if I zoom in, you can actually see some of it, but the clone stamp tool allows you to select the clone stamp tools here. You click Alt and then you select what part you want to be copying, and then you then click whatever you want to cover. For example, if I go back on this 21 Pilots layer and then and then if I started to rub all down here, it then changes this back layer to whatever part of the image I've cloned. Like if I go back on my 20 layer and actually select it from layer, like this part of this t-shirt, and then start, I have to click on the actual layer. Then I do this, Alt, and then click on his shirt, and then start rubbing down his arm. It copies everything that I have selected. And I found that extremely useful for when I actually imported this image, because there was a big outline of them where it was just the big outline from where I'd quick selected it. So what I did was use the clone stamp and then use that to slowly blend in around the edges. So in the long run, when you zoom back out, there is not a white line going around them. Yes, there is a bit of a black line going around them, but it looks a lot more professional and a lot more even than a thick white line. Probably another obvious tool is the text box tool. And the text box obviously used for all of my titles, the full title, the masthead, the pull quotes, as well as it was used for this very small barcode here. And I particularly love Photoshop's text tool because it is very easy to use. You can just click on the text. For example, if I move over to this Gerard Way one, and then I've clicked on that layer, if I just clicked here, you can just click on it and then highlight it and adjust it however you want. Change the font if you want, change the point size, change it from italic or bold italic to normal. And then another thing is, for other applications, there's a very long-winded way for you to have to change the colour of the text, whereas on Photoshop it's just there ready for you. Like you just click on it, change it to red, obviously, which makes it hardly able to see, but if I change it to white you can see it there. You just basically click on here, adjust it to whatever colour you want, whatever your heart desires, change it to green if you want, and then you can just leave it however you want. And you can also, every single time you create a new text box, it's another layer. Again, the layer system is absolutely amazing on Photoshop. And probably the thing that goes hand in hand for my specific cover with the text boxes is the rectangle boxes, which you can see here, this red one. And I found these particularly useful because they're so easy to maneuver that I managed to make them perfectly in line with the writing, like this blue and white blue one here with he's back in the white text there. The actual text is the actual box itself is very sensitive when you create it. Like, it doesn't jump and go from like 10 pixels to 20. It goes, and you can also adjust it pixel by pixel, which I think is very useful if you want it to be either perfectly in line or proportional. You don't want a specific space between them. So I love the text box for that reason. The rectangle box. And if I zoom back out, you can see that I used it here. And you can create as many as you want, which was very useful. Like, I also used the rectangle tool to go through the O's on my headline, because that's something that the band is very well known for. So by just creating a big long rectangle and then rotating it, it enabled me to make sure that I was putting forward the house style that the band is known for. Another thing that was probably equally as important was the colour match tool, which is this tool here, and then you just basically click anywhere. For example, I just click the background, and then it has stored the sample of the colour up here. Like, if I click the white, it then stores the white up there, the blue of his t-shirt up there. And the reason I used that a lot was because I wanted to match the colour from his t-shirt and the background of this picture and the background of all the boxes. I wanted to make sure they matched in a way, but not so it was all just flat blue and flat red. So I used the colour swatches and then found another colour that was just as close to it as anything else.